sales tax. So the money that you spend on the public taxes all goes to maintaining the roads. So that it's good. So that's the way we sent it to the Senate. Some of you who are conservatives, and they say, Al, I thought you were conservative, why would you go for this? And it would simply be because I think it's a conservative solution in that we found that the average motorist spends about $400 or $500 a year in repairing their automobiles, and this is figured to be about $5 or $6 a month. Would be a pretty good change. Now, not that you won't have some maintenance due to road conditions, but hopefully that will be the case. So that's the way we signed for the Senate.
Okay, so now we have that Senate bill, a House bill come over to Senate, and we have I'm on roads and transportation. We have a hearing Tuesday in the chambers to start taking testimony on this bill. There's going to be a lot of testimony on both sides, up or down, what they think of the increases. You know, there's other stuff inside that bill, of course, the registration fee going up, registration fee going up for all vehicles over 26,000 pounds, 5%. The wheel tax issue was there. So there's a lot of other issues besides the gasoline tax. You got the surtax going up, the special fuel tax going up, diesel tax going up. And I don't like all these increases, okay? And neither does Hal, okay? But Hal's absolutely right. We got to rock up on the wall here what to do and what kind of a plan to come up with to get more money. So these are tax increases, but they're kind of user tax increases the more you use of this system. And everybody pays that comes into your estate, whether you're an outside trucking firm coming in or not, you're going to pay for these road use taxes when you come in. Whether you pay at the pump and buy diesel in Indiana or whether you don't, you're still going to pay through that formula. So there's going to be a lot of dialogue on the Senate side about everything that's inside there. The House worked very hard over the summer coming up with this bill that they sent to us, but it's probably not going to stay intact exactly the way it is, but it's going to be probably fairly close as user taxes. Nobody really has a lot of other options besides just raising taxes somewhere else, whether it be a income tax increase or whatever you're doing. There is going to be a little bit of shortfall in the other areas of the budget, like Hal said, because if we take all 7 cents of that gallon of gasoline, then we're going to have to replace some of that revenue in the general stream of the general, the budget that funds other stuff. So it's going to be great dialogue. I've got a lot of feedback from my district on this throughout. Farm Bureau is supportive of this legislation very strongly. The Farm Bureau, they understand that the rural roads and stuff, they're not in good shape either. But I think Hal hit the nail on the head about the funding local and state. One of the big issues we're both looking at is where's the funding going locally and state? How's it going to be divided? Is it going to be divided fairly so locals get their share of this to get this done, and what incentives we give to the locals to make sure this gets done right? So that's where it's at. So stay tuned for the debate as time goes on, and when the end of the session ends, April 22nd, I think, is the last day. So.
And by the way, Mary's a councilman in Dyer. One of the things I wanted to mention is last year we had a matching grant to maintain. So for every dollar that the locals would put in, they'd get a dollar.
We did that.
For that grant. Yeah, it took advantage of that. This year it's been changed, it'll be 4 to 1. So every dollar you put in, you get 4 back. So that will be very helpful. And of course the dollar amount that's in there has been raised.
We had a question from one of our constituents the other night about asking about the wheel tax. They said we already paid the wheel tax and died, and now the state is going to impose another wheel tax.
That
I understand.
Sure. That was set up last year such that you couldn't double dip. So if there was if the county came along and imposed the tax, there would not be a dual tax.
But I do think the bill reads about the double taxation issue of the wheel tax. In the future, there could be. If your county has a wheel tax and your city or town does a wheel tax, there could be a double taxation issue. I don't think
Well, I thought the bill that we did last session, last year,
I'll have to look at it.
accounted for that.
Yeah, I think we'll have to look at that issue.
At least that's the way it was. Sometimes in conference, some of these things get altered, and, you know, it's just hard to stay on every detail, but I was pretty sure that was an important issue for us.
In any city or town that does a wheel tax, you know, nobody likes to pay extra, but just like in Dyer, that money stays in Dyer for all construction projects, whatever they may have for repaving. It's very transparent. It stays in your town, so you can see what they're spending it on, go to your council meetings, make sure they're spending in the right spot. So nobody likes taxes, but if you have a city or town wheel tax, and this bill that's in budget bill, I think, is before it said a population of 10,000 or more city or town to do a wheel tax. I think it's 5,000 in this new bill. So that's gonna open up to some other towns and cities in the state of Indiana, like Lowell, for example, is at 9,000, Cedar Lake, Winfield, and they kind of jump out in Lake County. This will open this up a little bit for them to do the wheel tax issue. But they have to do it through their ordinance in their town, and they have to do it through their town council, and make sure, so there's public hearings with it, there's all kinds of exposure here, whether you agree with it or not, to go voice your opinion.
There's also an important element regarding that wheel tax. The tax is not required in order to get the 4-to-1 grant money. The community has dollars that they can use those dollars. It does not have to come from some tax. Hold on. I'm sorry?
I'm not quite sure.
Oh,
what
okay,
the tax is.
that's, I'll get you next. The wheel tax is a tax that it used to be a county would impose, and now communities of a certain size could impose, where they would collect at the time of registration so many dollars that would go to the county for the specific purpose of maintaining the roads. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
My secondary question would be, why would you guys down in Indy want to restrict any town from putting a wheel tax on regardless of their size? But that's not my important question. What was the total budget you said for the state of Indiana, plus or minus?
Annually, about 16 billion.
Okay, so, and then he comments that you're figuring out ways to come up because you're $1.2 billion short.
Right.
And you said, well, we got this tax, that tax. And you guys are telling me, out of all the people down there, you don't have one example of a place you can make cuts in the budget? Yes. Not a single place out of $16 billion. There's not a single place you can find to cut anything?
Yeah. There's places throughout the budget.
He just said there aren't.
No, I didn't say that.
Sure you did.
I said that's where the money is coming from, because there's no other recourse to find money, and that's probably where you got that.
No, he played his tape back. You said there are no other ideas for
I didn't think I
records.
said no other ideas. I said there's no other procedure in place. I don't have any other ideas about how getting this money, and your point.
That's what I just said.
Your point is well taken about looking at other avenues, and I think that's why, we have this is not a bill. That dialogue's gonna be in the Senate. That's why I said this bill's gonna change. But when you take all 7% of a gallon of gasoline and switch over to the road funding, that makes a shortfall in the budget and some other issues, you know.
No, but you're not getting the point, though. The shortfall in you got, the United States just took in a record tax haul for the last 2 years. The United States government, record tax haul. And somehow we're still short. But I've been out to Washington, D.C. in the last 3 times in the last, 8 months. They are building buildings that look like the Taj Mahal left and right. Now, I'm not saying that's going on here locally per se, but tax, that goes on forever, and yet, you didn't say one time, there's not a single place to make any kind of reductions in the budget. Philosophically, that's impossible, because no family would operate like that. Nobody would. And you own a business, right?
Right.
You would never think of doing that, I can assure you.
Well, I guess, in fairness, when I made those steps, I know there's other places to look, okay? And that dialogue's gonna be in the Senate where they had that version in the House. There's gonna be a dialogue from 50 other senators. You look confused when I say that.
Oh, no, wait, I'm not,
no,
I'm not
just
confused.
No, I know.
I
but
just listened to what you
let me
said,
finish.
that's all I'm
I'm
saying.
trying to say that there's gonna be dialogue about shifting money from another fund that maybe is overfunded, need to look at. We all know we got a surplus, we see that, okay? But that surplus is there for a reason, that's another dialogue. I'm not sure all these increases are gonna hold us, and I think there's a lot of pushback on a lot of these increases in the Senate. And when it happens, there's gonna be dialogue about that. There may be money that somebody's gonna find in other areas that you can do. And I think that will be a big part of conversation the second half. And the House is gonna get this bill back after those changes are made, and they're gonna confer, and there's gonna be stuff that comes out of these things. So if I said something that way, you're right, I'm a small business, but I know what it, we need to look for money and find it someplace maybe we're not spending it wisely right now. I get that. Boy, you increase taxes.
I know, but when you say look for money, that means increasing the revenue pot. You haven't even, since I even raised my hand, you haven't once said reduction. You haven't mentioned the word
Well,
reduction.
I'm just looking for the money and see where we're overspending money. That's a reduction. If you find that, that's a reduction in what they're getting to put to something else. I think I said that just now, that we're looking to find money in other funds that aren't being used properly. That's a reduction, that fund to another fund if that money's not needed in that department. So the concept, you gotta understand that everybody's gonna be looking at everything down there. And there's no will to increase taxes and user taxes. But this was an option, this came over now, this is from the summer study session. And I think there's gonna be a lot of pushback on it, okay? And both sides when it goes back. And they're gonna be looking for every possible way they can find money. You gotta understand that every budgetary person that comes before Hal, and Hal can tell you this better than I can, I mean, whether it's the universities or where FSSA, they all need more money every year.
No, you're not.
I'm just saying.
I'm speaking in English language.
I know
here.
you are. I'm
You
not
said
trying to
you
give you an
want.
answer in English a little bit.
I know, but you've said the same thing 5 times now. More
So are
money.
you, sir. I mean, I don't want to, you're saying the same thing back. I'm saying
No,
they have to look
I'm
at all this
saying less
funding and
money.
see if there's money that can be reduced from their asking over to funding for other stuff. Okay, that's part of this process. And that's what's going on right now. Everybody has their budget request. And we know what's there and what they didn't spend and how it was spent in the last 2 years. So you're looking, is there another avenue here to find money to put towards transportation and to push back on some of these increases that are in this transportation bill? There's also in this bill a study about tolling. There isn't I don't think there's a person down there in the Senate, I can't speak for the House, that even thinks tolling is a good idea, okay? They don't, that's about the last resort we can even look at, because some of the points you made about, we're already spending a lot of money on tax money, and we're spending a lot to you, and now you're talking about tolling 80, 94, or 65, or 70 on top of that. But that's part of this bill, that part of this bill that may not stay there. This is one part of the bill right now. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on kind of the flip side of that, that my question to you regarding this issue is that not to cut, but rather to take a look at what about increasing corporate taxes, business taxes. And my reasoning for that is I feel that a gasoline tax and really any consumption tax is kind of regressive, and since there is really a lack of public transportation options in our districts, people with less income will have more trouble paying for gasoline taxes. And what I'm really worried about is that I know we have a conservative government, and Indiana brags about being pro-business. We have so much heavy industry and trucking, industrial uses, which probably takes a big impact on the road. So I would ask not that you start cutting programs, but rather take a look at other sources of income to address this issue.
Well, the only response I can make to that is, interestingly, since the corporate tax was cut, revenues have gone up. And I think, the risk is we don't want to create a disincentive for business. We want more people working.
And I understand, and there's a lot to that too. That's a complicated issue. I can also make the argument that most of the four corners of Indiana, because of our lower gasoline rates, we enjoy people coming from the other states filling out at lower rates. What will happen if our gasoline is as expensive as they are? So I guess that's what I'm asking. I can't begin to understand all the things we have to consider. I'm just saying I don't hear anybody considering raising revenue. It's like everybody's so conservative these days, cut taxes. I still think that there's a lot of reasons corporations want to come to Indiana, and you've done a great job. Look at our education, look at universities and the things we offer. That has a lot to do with the high-tech jobs. And so the manufacturing is high-tech now. But all I know is I've lived in this area all my life, and when you go on any expressway, you see the interstate trucking, and a lot of the manufacturing and the businesses that have been attracted to places like Porter, they are attracting heavy equipment using all the roads. So I'm just asking to please consider, I don't know that Indiana has, I forgot now, we're like rated number 11 with corporate taxes and attractive to bringing in business. What if we were number 20? You know, maybe split the difference a little bit, increase taxes a little bit. Again, mostly my concern is that any consumption tax is really regressive on people with lower income.
Well, and all I can say to that point is that the idea was to index it no higher than what it was when it was last raised in 2002.
Thanks.
Yep.
The legislature passes these bills and everything, but I just wonder how far down the line you go to say the actual operation of IDOT. And Lake County is unique in the fact that years ago they had the Blue Jackets. They had these portable weight trucks. They eliminated those. Right here with the heavy steel industry, I know this for a fact, if a steel trucking outfit can put 60,000 pounds on it, roads are designed for 40,000. They get above that, they're going to damage the road. These guys, because Lake County has no scales, has no Blue Jackets, these steel haulers of different varieties are coming through overloaded. There's garbage trucks coming out of Chicago and Illinois, MPI. There must be some big landfill down south. Sometimes I see them, they can just barely make it through a red light coming from a dead stock because they are so overloaded. And they're tearing up our roads. We have no enforcement for the weight, not here in Lake County. And we're unique because we got the heavy industry out of Chicago and the steel. I'm sure they don't have this problem over in South Bend, but they sure have it here. But yet, we've got to build more money, repair the roads. We stop the roads from being damaged, we'd be money ahead.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of our dollars are spent on I-94, I-65 for those reasons.
Now, the garbage trucks go down 41, but they bypass that weight.
That's been no prize either.
Yeah, they bypass the scale.
And I'm not an expert on this point, but I would certainly hope that that's a component in maintaining our roads, is making sure that we're able to regulate them.
You know, part of the bypass for the garbage trucks is 41's a legal route, and they're coming from Illinois, so they're not gonna go any further to have to hit scales. I mean, and you know, so they run down 41 from coming across 8094 or coming across Route 10, Route 2 in my area is just filled with garbage trucks coming over, and that's part of doing business, I guess, with that landfill being down there. You know, they operate. You know, end of Bill version coming over, there's a portion there about electronic weighing, putting monitors in the road, that when trucks go over these monitors, it puts a weight that comes up on that monitor, I don't know exactly how it works, with the license plate, and they can do electronic monitoring with these things in the road itself, instead of having stations set up. You know, but then you get in the problem of a little bit of privacy issue and things. How tough are we gonna be on residents and people that keep monitoring everything they do? And you have your point about the outside waste coming in, or outside trucks. Well, our Indiana trucks run over Ohio and Illinois and Kentucky too. How much more pressure do we want to put on trucking firms and stuff of trying to catch them doing illegal stuff, which they shouldn't be doing? I understand it. It's very difficult time loading trucks and getting the right weight on each axle and doing stuff that's proper, and you end up being overweight on one portion of the axle or not. And just real quick, one Senate bill we did, which I liked, I didn't know, and if you got stopped, it was 4 points off your license if you were overweighted, whoever the driver was. Okay, it's gonna go away with this new bill, that there's no points come off. You get the fine, of course, you're gonna have to pay that. But whoever the driver is, doesn't get points off. He might, was told to take this load, he works for somebody else, and now he's got a CDL license with points against it. That's how he makes a living. So that portion's gonna come off there if this bill passes July 1st. There's no more points off a driver if it's overweighted. The company itself's gotta pay the fine.
I don't know, I think Ray was next.
We have a budget. Everybody has to work on a budget. You talk to everybody in the state. Everybody wants something from you. They want this, they want that. you have to pick a priority. Right now it's the roads, and spending here. How many people do you have come and say, well, cut my budget so we can better? We want it, but we don't want to spend
I
it.
trust that's a rhetorical question.
Well, have you had anybody ever come to you and say, well, cut my budget so we can get something else?
That's where the state, as the legislators, rely on people we have working for us down there in all these governmental departments to make sure that they're researching this stuff and what they're requesting. Now, Hal said some ways and means, he explained it a lot better to you because everybody that wants budgetary money goes before them and they do it in the Senate under appropriations. But that's what they do. They look, see how they spent their money the year before, what they're requesting money for, why are they asking the increase, or whatever they're asking for, and you gotta judge from what you get from those departments of where you need to go. You gotta ask the tough questions and find out how legitimate this is when they come before you, and that's how the process works for a 4-month period. When you're doing a budget, you do your budget plan. So it's not as simple as you think that people is, you know, they have to show what they're using it for, and whether you can find something in there that you think, I know they don't need this money, or they're asking for more than they really need, or they're asking for an unfairness in what they want over someone else. It's tough dialogue down there to try to weed those out.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, so are you talking about a transportation bill and funding, or has anyone asked about the South Shore expansion, that bill? 1140.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Are you?
No, so you're just talking about you're talking about just the transportation bill, but the state of Indiana.
Yeah, we were just talking about the road funding.
Mhm,
That's
the
all,
gas tax.
that's all we were talking about. So, all right.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
In regards to what you said, House Bill 1144, it's 36 pages long, very confusing. But what I did make out of this is that you are going to, with the test of the South Shore, which is a private enterprise, you're going to take funding from our police departments who protect us. You're going to take funding from our fire departments who help us in emergencies. And you heard this for 50, 20, you're raping the schools to get of their money to fund a railroad, to take people to Chicago, which is Illinois. I don't understand your logic.
Okay, well, the question is about the rail funding bill, and we're taking money from the schools and public safety. I have no idea what you're talking about. That's just not the case.
Where would the funding come from?
The funding is gonna come from new development.
What project?
Any new development that is in a designated district would create the assessed value and the property tax that would then be used for infrastructure development.
So you're going to take property tax money to fund private
That
enterprise.
doesn't exist today, that's correct, just like any TIF does today.
So that, again, that's going to hit our schools, our police departments, our fire departments.
Well, hopefully it's gonna help the schools because, and the fire departments and the police departments, because that new development is going to generate other new development that is going to attract young families, students, rather than declining enrollment that we have in the schools. If we could have increasing enrollment, it'd be much better off.
But this money, according to the state here, well, the taxes are going to stop 30 years from now. So our tax dollars that we put into this are going to be taken away from the corporations that are not developing.
These are dollars that do not exist today. Okay? We're not talking about taxes that we're using today. These are projected taxes from new development that would come about.
Sales tax.
Gambling with our tax
I'm sorry.
dollars.
Sales taxes, property taxes, anything in that.
Sales taxes and income taxes are state revenues. Those would be increased and what would be used to, in effect, pay back the people of Indiana for the appropriation. It's going to be paid for by appropriations by the state as well as locals. And that's what would be used to pay that back.
This gentleman asked if there was anyone asking you to cut their budget. We're here asking you to not fund House Bill 1144. That's a $500 million right there that you can use for something else. With regard to this only being from new development, I live in the city of Hammond, and I drove around the area of Chicago Avenue, Gothland Avenue, Sheffield, the area where this transit-oriented development is going to go in the future. And if you look at that area right now, there were existing businesses and residences and other things in that area that were paying 2% and 3% taxes because they were primarily rental properties and commercial properties that are now shuttered and being torn down to reduce the base value to the value of vacant land. And so once that base is established at vacant land, that will be the base for 30 years that will go into this sort of super TIF that is going to be created. So properties that were paying taxes at $500,000, say for the CVS on the corner or whatever kind of drugstore it was, or $1 million, are now at this day taxed at virtually nothing. They're taxed at the rate of vacant land. So we've already lost, and we will continue to lose in the city of Hammond, $30,000 a year for the next 4 or 5 years until something comes in there. And then when something comes in there, all of that money will be taken from our local units and will go to the RDA.
So are you implying that this is a grand scheme that to lower the assessed value in this property to make this work?
I don't know if that's the scheme, but if you look at how these things, this comes, this isn't the first time that this has ever been done. It's been done elsewhere, and if we look at how it's happened elsewhere, the base is lowered first, and even if the base isn't lowered, it also takes organic increases in value. Isn't that correct?
What takes organic increase?
The increment that goes to the RDA away from the locals to a regional unelected organization, correct?
Right.
Okay, it's going to go to the RDA and be taken away from the people that we elect every 4 years, right?
You're
so
talking about taxes that don't exist, yes.
Well, but they will exist because it includes local option income tax, right?
That's correct.
Are we to assume that people will receive raises in the next 30 years if you do nothing?
I don't know what that's got to do with it.
Because all of the increase in the tax on those raises that are organic, that would come about anyway, are now going to go to the RDA instead of local units.
Income tax generated in that district.
Right. Okay, so let's take one example, okay? The Gateway Station in Hammond. There are certain employers over there, right, that currently exist. We've got Wolf Lake over there. There's a small industrial park there. Some of those people are actually federal employees, believe it or not, which receive normal cost of living raises, right?
Okay.
All of the tax on all of those raises for the next 30 years will go to the RDA and not to the city of Hammond, correct? On the local option income tax.
If they were in the district.
Correct. And we have no control.
District specific.
And we have no control over where those districts are. You don't either, actually, after the bill's passed, right?
No, it would be worked out between the RDA and the local municipality.
Well, there's no provision in the bill for the local municipality to provide any input, right?
That's correct. And that's
It's
something that
solely on the RDA.
That is, we had a meeting.
But you already voted for the bill as it is. So to say it's going to change is disingenuous. Because you wrote it and voted for it as it
Actually,
is.
it's not at all disingenuous because I stood in front of the entire assembly and promised that we would continue to alter the bill because there were so many components that hadn't been worked out. We had a meeting in Munster. There are folks here from Munster that heard me say that, where we talked about possible changes that could be made to the bill, that some issues that were left over.
But there's very limited opportunity to change it at this point, right? Because
There's
it's done. There's very limited opportunity. I mean, just a moment ago you said.
That is not accurate. There's
It,
lots of
just a second ago, you said in conference it's hard to stay on every detail, right?
in conference committee.
So once this is amended in the Senate, it's going to have to go to conference, right?
Right.
Where it's hard to stay on every detail.
Well, not when you're the chairman of the conference committee, which I would be.
But it's hard for us to stay on it because we have no input at that point, right?
Well, not at all. We try to, those conference committee meetings are public meetings.
All right.
Not only that, the Senate's going to get
Is
an entire round of hearings and amendment process in committee and on second reading.
Is there any reason that this couldn't wait until the next biennial budget to see if the Westlake extension is approved and then start with this project?
And how does that benefit us?
It benefits us because citizens at that point possibly could have more input. I feel like citizens were not informed before this bill was even proposed.
And the other thing that you talked about is that there's half $500 million of appropriation in this bill. There simply is not.
Well, that's the
money
number
is
from,
appropriated
that's
in
the
the
number
budget.
from, I believe, from the fiscal impact statement or from policy analytics. I can't remember which one.
Policy analytics talks about the amount of revenue that can be generated through the development in these districts.
Well, that's the amount of revenue that's going to be taken out of the districts and given to the RDA, correct?
It doesn't exist today.
That would go
That's
to the,
correct.
that would go to, but much of that will be organic. Do we know what portion will be organic and what won't?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so what
Part
would
of the
the,
study, I'd have to look up.
what's the current, we don't know what the districts are, right? So we can't estimate what the current income is and what the growth over a normal
No,
course
in
of
the-
time.
In the RDA comprehensive study, they anticipated the districts being about a half a square mile. And that, in that case, they projected out what the revenue would be from that.
But we don't know how many districts they're going to create?
That was based on
Okay, but we also know that they plan on doing this around bus stops, correct?
I have no idea about that.
That's what Mr. Hanna said the other day, and you've said that in the past, right? That there could be bus transit in Griffith?
Oh,
that-
certainly. I
That
hope
would,
so.
that could have TOD around it?
I would absolutely hope so.
Okay, so we would ultimately have many more than 9 over the course of 30 years, right?
No, no.
I mean 8, I'm
Now,
sorry, you said
that,
8.
that is another point that came out of the Munster meeting, that we need to define that.
We need to limit the number of districts
Yes.
that they
I'm
have,
in
because,
good with that.
because as it is, there could be 2 or 4 per station, the way the bill is written now.
No,
You could
no,
go
we need
south
to-
and
we
north,
need to
and
define that. I agree.
so we need to limit the number of districts, and we can expect that to
Right,
happen.
just because somebody in another town could generate a TOD to service the rail doesn't mean it would be a TDD district for that purpose. No, that
Well,
was
that's very
never-
comforting,
that
thank
was
you.
never
So,
intended.
okay, so we're not going to have a TDD district in Griffith or in Maryville. So for instance, they're going to run these buses around South Lake Mall.
That
South
would
Lake
be-
Mall
that
will
would
not be.
That would be a private enterprise.
So we won't have a TDD district in South Lake Mall to make 30 walkable and all that.
No, because it's not, the bill stipulates that the TDDs have to be at rail stops. It stipulates that.
That wasn't what Mr. Hanna said yesterday,
Well, I'm
so,
just telling you what the bill says.
so we're going to clarify that as to the number
Well,
of
that's what the
that.
bill says. What it doesn't specify is how many there can be.
I think it says rail stations or stops,
Regular stops.
regular
There's a
stops.
specific
Oh, that's
wording, and if the RDA is publicly stating that they consider that to be bus
Okay.
stops, perhaps that.
So that, I mean, I've
Yeah.
agreed, we're gonna work on that.
Okay, so we're going to clarify that there's going to be 8 at train stations.
That's where we're at. Yes, ma'am.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is like a 4 kind of prong funding for this. RDA, state now, seeded money, and the Fed money. If you do not get the one prong, seeded money, it appears you've got 3 prongs. If you do not get seeded money from what I'll call responsible local governments looking into this, will this project go through without the additional seeded money?
Yes,
How?
because it's already been calculated based on the revenue that has been committed.
From the other
Yes, correct.
arenas plus the
Right.
seeded money that you have?
Right, candidly, I think the bigger concern right now is making sure the federal component comes through.
Although, in the application that you file for this money, it's acceptable that these other
We have-
entities
we
do
have
not
enough
commit.
local- We have enough local revenue to make it work, that's correct. Now, the additional revenues would be nice, but, you know, that was a voluntary ask. So, all right, who hasn't asked a question?
Nobody,
I have
great,
an extra
so.
question. I asked
Sure.
this at a meeting that Mara held, but because you're so involved with the bill, HB tell everyone I know there's a lot of anti-training people here on co-train. Where I have issues with the bill is the funding of the buildings around the train stations and how that is diverting money away from the local schools. We've talked about that extensively locally. You have some lists of concrete ideas that citizens have provided to you. For example, allocating a percentage of the increment to the schools, reducing the size from 640 acres around each station to something smaller. Today, you just mentioned it would only include the properties that are actually developed, or something like that happens. If you're saying you're only going to include in the TDC district, the actual properties that are developed as part of that, that would be great. So
I'm not sure I understand your point. Say that again.
So earlier today, you said we're only going to be taking tax money from those properties that are created around the train districts.
No, in the district.
In the district, so it can be from existing properties within a 640 acre area. So those are just suggestions. One other thing that I didn't get to talk to you about was specifically, obviously, this is all set up like a TIF district. And in Indiana, there are very concrete rules about how redevelopment commissions have to use TIF money. There has to be statements of no conflict of interest. There has to be providing a project and showing that the public benefits. There has to be annual reporting. There has to be public meetings. I'm really hoping, because essentially this isn't just a super TIF. It seems like it's the same kind
Well, I don't know what a super TIF is.
Well, I don't know what it is, but what are we calling this? Is this a TIF?
It's a TIF.
Okay, so is it going to
It's
have?
a TIF with a couple extra provisions.
But it doesn't have to, Mara Reardon said in the meeting that it doesn't have to abide by the current Indiana TIF rules.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so maybe the bill should be amended to state that.
No, the bills are, sometimes these bills are difficult to read. The bill references the TIF provisions in the existing Indian code.
Can you point me to the page and the
Not
line number?
this minute, but
That would be really helpful. So how are we going to work with conflict of interest, for example? The redevelopment commission has to state that they will not personally monetarily benefit from projects that they are running and that they fund. How are we going to work that with the RDA?
I don't know what obligations are in place in that regard with the RDA, but that's certainly something to look at.
Yeah, I think similar rules should be put in place so that they can't be abused.
So that they have the same
I'm not saying the intention is to.
The same
abuse it.
obligation as a redevelopment.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to look at.
Thank you.
Let me just make reference to what I said about a couple additional provisions. We have already in that bill provisions so that, let's say, let's think positive. The development comes and things are great, and now we're generating more revenue in the new increment than is needed or can be used. In this bill, unlike a regular TIF, every 3 years there has to be a public hearing to evaluate that. And if in fact there's more than what is projected to be needed, that base can be raised so that part of that increment can flow back to the community, the schools, and whoever benefits from those taxes.
And the alternative, if there's not enough, who pays?
Well, it's not a matter of...
Say nobody rides the
No.
train, nobody does this. Where are you gonna get your money?
Well, if there's nobody interested in developing, we're talking private dollars. If there's nobody interested in developing in one of these stations and districts, then there's going to be no tax to even talk about, and nothing changes. Yes, sir.
Now, I think TIF currently does work that way, where if a TIF district puts in something right away to examine, this district generates more revenue than what its expenses are, and the local council needs to vote to give those funds back to the county, distributed through all the tax benefits. But on the other point,
Hold on, can we address that? That's correct, but it's voluntary.
the other thing, we're told by Hickman that this train stops will create all this development. So why is it that we have to further incentivize the development? I'm not asking the question immediately now, I'm asking the question just rhetorically. The other part is, all this development, if it happens, again with the big if, there's social costs to that. Developments are gonna cost the school system, development will cost police and fire. There are social costs to development. When we take the funds that pay for that currently, particularly the property tax dollars, we turn over to the RDA, all the other taxpayers are left to cover those costs. And I don't think it's right. You mentioned that.
Well, hold on, now, to develop the kind of developments that most communities want, TIF is the most common structure used. We can elect not to do anything. We can elect to leave everything the way it is. We can still continue to not do anything to encourage people to move here, to increase property values, to raise families that will help boost our education. I mean, this is an option to do something.
But the RDA
So
currently,
I'm sorry, you had one more point.
but the,
I'd like to just one little comment, just listening, because this, you know, hell, I'm the sponsor in the Senate, I'm listening to all this stuff here with this dialogue. That's why I'm here today, to listen to your concerns and where you may be, and Hal's dialogue on this. But we got a half-mile radius here. All I can say is like the concept of local government, and I've been in all my life, is you're gonna have growth away from that half mile, okay? So you're gonna have growth that's not gonna be part of this, if you wanna call it a TIF, whatever happens in these communities. I'm looking for growth in Lowell and Cedar Lake and any of these communities. Once you get a station there, I think that's gonna make people, you know, 15, 20 minutes away from Cedar Lake, half hour maybe from Lowell, to get to that station, use that train. You gotta believe in the concept, you think it's a part of our area here that we need to do or not to do, because we do have Chicago sitting there, we do have Illinois sitting there with jobs, and we have a tax base that will bring people in to Northwest Indiana. Our real estate tax base is twice as good or 3 times better than Illinois. If you live in Crete or any of these other communities, what you're paying real estate taxes and the Cook County stuff. So just that little concept of, I understand your concerns. I'm listening to them about that TIF that you're creating, but you got to look at the overall picture too. You might agree with it, you might not agree with it, but it's going to grow Northwest Indiana, whatever community you may live in, and you're not going to have a train station, you know, basically to your area, but it's going to create growth, and that's how I kind of talk about this issue. I've changed somewhat on it as time went, because they were talking about running the rail line to Lowell and Cedar Lake and those areas, and absolutely we're not ready for it. And locally here, they have to make a decision whether you're ready for it or not, whether they want to put this in this area and what they want to expand to. But just to think, we're talking about this half-mile radius, and I really understand your concerns about that growth and capturing those tax dollars and not getting them to the local budgets maybe right off the bat that they need to get to. I understand that concept. But you got to look at the overall picture a little more too, I think, about what this may do.
All right, we've got, I'd seen 2 hands. Let's do 2 more on this subject and then maybe move on to something else. I picked on teachers earlier about staying on one subject, so I'm going to pick on the 3 people now. So, sir, you had your hand.
When you say it's a half-mile or 1-mile radius, it's not. The legal word is contiguous. It means it can be 1 block wide going wherever the hell they want to put it to capture as much money as they want. That's number 1. If people were so desirous to ride the train because they want to give up a $20,000 job in Indiana to go to the big city to make 80, they're either lying or they're stupid, because you're telling me you're not going to drive up Calumet Avenue to get on the train to swap 20 grand for 80 grand? That group of people is lying.
there's no place to park.
Excuse me, you can raise your hand. Okay, the next thing is, the estimates for your train ridership have been, let's see, in 1988, I think it was like 32,000. 1998, it was for 42,000. They boosted it up to 44,000. It hasn't gone over 12.5 in like 9.5 years now. You closed the Dan Ryan, one of the most busiest expressways in the country. It bumped up and went right back down because the train is not a reliable source. The other thing is, from a philosophical point of view, Hal, you live in Cherylville, right? You live in Lowell. You guys are both on that one region program, right? Of we should do things as a group in a region, right? To foster economic growth, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. At the same time, you're saying you're for all that, and excuse my phrase of BS, but Sheriffville vehemently did every legal maneuver they could to stay out of E911 because you wanted nothing to do with that economic disaster called E911. And then when 4 people died in the first 6 months, Sheriffville said, thank God we did not get into this one region fiasco. You had an expressway proposed to go through Lowell, and the people of Lowell said, well, we don't really want to do that because we like Lowell. If we wanted Chicago, that's where we would live. If we wanted to live next to a train, there's units available in Oak Park. I could sell you 100 of them by noon today. But that's not what they want. The people of Munster now are starting to clamor, as are the people of Hammond, and I don't understand the desire for you guys to tell me that south of 30 is not booming. It's lily white, it's upper income, the schools are bursting. They're doubling the size of the schools. They can't put them up fast enough. And then you got Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary, who you're going to drain seeded money from. They're blighted, they're crime-ridden. It's excluding Hammond. I mean, you got ghettos. And you're not putting a second of effort into those places. But you guys from 2 towns over, who aren't going to be affected by this train at all, want to tell us we need a train. We all of a sudden, in Munster at Ridge Road, we need 4-story buildings filled with who the hell knows what kind of tenants you're going to get. All of a sudden, nobody in Munster had an idea to do that, but you guys with the RDA are going to show us how to
I
make
get it, you don't want the train. Okay.
Absolutely not. And that's never been addressed with
You
anybody.
made your point. All I can tell you is we have representatives from Munster, Hammond, East Chicago on the bill. Michigan City, you talked about the contiguous point.
East Chicago's not on your bill, by the way. East Chicago's not out. They've said 0. No money are they
I said
contributing.
we have representatives on the bill.
Well, yeah, one guy, he's not putting any money in.
Now,
Our representative.
all right, you had your chance. All right, as far as the contiguous and the shape and the size, and the locals have no input, well, we already met with Michigan City. Michigan City is anxious to get this going, and they said, what do we do? I said, work with your planning people, figure out where you'd like to put this TDD, and they're already working in that.
Out of Michigan City, right?
In Michigan City.
What's that gonna do with Munster?
Well, it's.
I don't care what they do in
about-
Michigan
What
City.
we're talking about here is a district that goes the entire length of the rail line. So that's what we're trying to coordinate.
But they can do what they
And
want,
you had
know?
a question back there.
Hal, real quick, I want to respond to your Region 1 statement. I'm not part of any committee, on the Region 1 stuff. Okay, I support what I think I need to support for Northwest Indiana. I have a problem with Region 1 in our South County area not getting what we need down there and projects involved with money. So don't paint me into them. I'm a member, I'm not a member of any of their boards. I don't go to any of their meetings. Okay, I make my decision based on what I think is the best. I live in Northwest Indiana all my life.
Okay,
Don't tie
that's no
me to
problem.
any committee or anything, and I make a decision based on what somebody tells me on a Northwest Indiana committee what I should be at, because that's not the case. I make my own decisions.
No, I was under the impression that you were, but like I said, I clarified because,
You can check anything you want and look at any committee dealing with that, Northwest Indiana Forum, Region 1, wherever you want. If you find my name, you let me know.
well, I appreciated the ability of the people of Lowell to say
We
they didn't
have
want
one
expressway,
more
as with Sherrville with
question.
911.
Expressway's still a live
Let's change
issue.
subject.
Yeah, it's no problem, I
It's
understand.
still a live issue. It's not gone.
Because you've been in the last 2 meetings I've done.
Okay, I'm really concerned about the TIF also. So I looked into our, after Munster, pretty much every commercial property in Munster is under a TIF right now. We looked it up on TIF Viewer. And so everything's under a TIF, so Munster's collecting all the TIF, and it stays with the town, and it doesn't go around to the other taxing bodies like the schools and libraries and stuff. So the school does get property tax, and the 3 funds that get property tax for our school is down $500,000 year over year. And I'm assuming it's because of the TIF, I'm not sure yet, I gotta look up to there. As Allison talked earlier, she does projections for TIF, she values property that are in TIFs and stuff, that's her job. And she's estimated that with this, seeing it doesn't hit residential property, to make profit off it, the residential property has to go up like 30% before the other taxing bodies actually get that money that you're taking from the increment. It's not there yet, but organically it'll create like 2.3% a year. So that's the first thing I want to say. Second thing is still I'm looking at close to $4 billion for everything that we're kind of going to be on the hook for, Lake County and Porter County.
I don't understand what.
A billion for the train and $3 billion for the TODs between Hammond and Munster is what the RDA plan says.
Now, that is not public money.
Well,
Except for the train, the 900 million that will be total for the train projects. Half of that is towards federal dollars. The other half is split between the local and the state. The dollars for the TODs would come from private investment.
No, RDA's kicking in too, that's what the bill is for.
That's, what they're kicking in for is our local share of the what will be the train debt service.
So, okay, don't worry about that. So then you told me at the last meeting that you have better buying power when you issue the bonds because it's going to be done by the state. So then I started thinking about that. And so is it going to be one bond or is every TDD going to have its own bond?
No, that's a separate issue. If there's bond funding in a TDD, it'd be just like it's handled in any other TIF. It would be limited to the assessed value that's being created.
But is it going to be one big bond, you think? Or
No, because they're all going to handle it.
So Main Street will have its own bond, Ridge will have its own bond, and Hammond will have its own bond, and going down South Carolina.
As these projects develop, they'll probably need to be financed separately, because all the money generated stays in that district.
Right, okay, so that's what I was worried. If we're all together, then we don't be responsible
Right.
for paying everybody's back. Thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to comment just a little bit on your comment too about the growth in Lake County. It's there, you can see it, St. John and Crown Point, no there's. But Tri-Creek School Corporation, Hanover School Corporation, and Lake Central are losing enrollment. Okay, what does that say? I guess the families aren't as big as they used to be, or whatever concept you want to use. But to think we're getting overrun in our schools because of the population coming in, it's not showing right now. The only school district in Lake County that's showing a rise slightly is Crown Point. Other than that,
Didn't they just double the size of Lake Central?
I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not getting those issues. I'm telling you enrollment. I'm telling you enrollment. That's a local issue, and whether it needed to be done, they can defend themselves very well, the school corporation, the board. I'm talking, you made a statement about the expansion. These are true facts, and I'm not getting involved with what the school corporations are doing in the Lake District.
Well, you are. You just
No,
said.
I'm just telling you, you tell me that the population is like exploding. Those districts are losing enrollment. Now, again, I'm not trying to tell you what that means. I'm not telling you that. You look so confused. They're statements. You said the population is exploding or getting bigger and bigger, where the school corporations are losing enrollment every year.
Then why did they just double the size of Lake
You know what?
Central?
You keep asking the same question. You tell me I keep answering. You keep asking the same questions. Okay, I don't know. It's not
I'll
my
help
issue.
you here. You live in
I'll
Sherwood.
answer it. I'm the superintendent of Lake
Right.
Central. We had 3,200 kids packed into a school that was built for 1,200.
So you
So
doubled.
we did double the size of the school, but our student enrollment, while it stays the same in high school,
Yeah.
our population has gone from 10,200 5 years ago to 9,400.
Where?
Our population has dropped 800.
Population of
Student-
schools.
District-wide.
student population.
District-wide. We have 10 schools.
You don't project that when you consider
You know
construction
what, you need,
costs?
guys, we need to stop. You need to go to a school
Okay.
board meeting, you got some
People
questions
are related to the
locally.
corporation.
We
Okay.
can-
Not me.
No, but you brought up the idea that you acting like all the schools and stuff are getting overrun by it. They're staying steady, they're actually losing a little bit. So you started the statement about how everything was growing so fast in Lake County.
No,
Okay.
no, not Lake County. I never said Lake
Well,
County.
and you're
I
right.
said south of 30, south of the expressway.
Okay, and and that's what I can, Lake Central, South.
Did they
you know-
just build Hanover High School in the last 15 years?
Yeah,
What's the new school down there?
Middle school.
Hanover, yeah, Hanover.
New high school?
They built a new middle school, sir. A new
So
middle
why
school.
would they do that if they're losing kids?
You know, your statements keep saying the same thing. Go check the records. You keep saying the same thing. I don't know. They probably need it. Maybe they had buildings that were old, 50-year-old buildings. I don't know. Go find that question out. Don't keep asking the same thing like the information I give you is not correct. They're
I didn't
losing
say it wasn't
enrollment.
correct.
Okay, then go find out why they built a new school if you want, and talk to Hanover and Cedar Lake area.
But the population sounds is growing fairly well, right?
I wouldn't say it's declining, no. I wouldn't say, what do you mean by very well? Again, you make statements very well, what does that mean?
Is it increasing or decreasing?
Oh, well, that's a statement, yeah, it's increasing, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but not very well, tell me what that means. Very
Well, I didn't
well.
say it was New York City.
All right,
You asked me
how
that.
about we move on to a new subject? You got a new subject? New subject?
You know, I wanna, well, I guess you could call it a new subject. I see tons of construction on White Oak off 93rd. I think there's gonna be 200 to 300 homes. Dyer, how many are they putting in, Mary, over here? Corinne Drive,
Okay, so what's
Fairview.
your point?
I think another couple hundred, maybe, okay, over there. Overall, there's probably new construction, like he said, south of 30, or some of it is north of 30. And they will have children. If you have 200, 300 homes over there in St. John, they're gonna have children, and they will fill the missing, I think you said 800 students maybe?
Not necessarily true though,
Or so.
if you talk to demographers, they'll tell you that.
Well,
Some of the
there
more
are-
expensive homes that are going in, people who live there, it's not their initial home, so you're not.
They're
even
moving.
if they have some students, they don't have young students, they're not the kids you get, they're fully K through 12.
We'll take it in half then. Cut it in half. You're gonna get some new students.
The neighborhoods that are
I
built
do
in the
agree.
$250,000 homes, yes. The neighborhoods like the.
I do agree that high
$150,000,
school
no.
was very small. The children walked through the hallways like
So,
this.
what's your point?
My point is that I do believe these new homes in Dyer, Sherrville, well, not Sher, I'm sorry, in St. John, I believe they will eventually produce more folks with kids who stay here or their
Well,
children.
I mean, we all hope you're right.
Right, it's like your bill. We're all hoping and
Well,
projecting.
it's not a matter of hope. We hope you're right. People like Larry and I have to base it on people that are specialists in these areas. The RDA hired people to do these studies and do these evaluations. The school district hired demographers that specialize in this to figure out what their long-term expectation might be for population.
In $200,000
That's
to
what the school board is.
$300,000 homes, people do have children in them. Yes, they do.
Can we,
And I'm
All
hoping
right.
they will fill
can we,
Another
some
subject.
vacant
Another
spots.
subject, yeah, ask me.
That's a little lighter note. I just graduated a couple years ago, and
Graduated from?
Purdue Cal.
Okay.
And like just living around here as a younger person and stuff like that, it's not really appealing. I'm seeing my friends even like moving out of the area and stuff like that to other, maybe even Indianapolis or something, or out of state even. Not necessarily Illinois and Chicago, because I think it's a disaster over there right now for your people to live. But how do we make Northwest Indiana more appealing to young people and families to bring them and bring them here, or better yet, just keep them here? Because I mean, I grew up in Northwest Indiana my whole life, and I'm looking around, and it's like, it's not really, there's not tons to do and stuff like that necessarily. And I'm just, do you guys have a plan or something to keep younger people here, or like on a, you're hoping that people stay?
Well, let me rephrase that, because I'm not sure everybody can hear. The point was, and question, as a young person, all of his friends seem to be leaving the area, and what are we going to do to try to encourage young people to stay? Is that okay? And I mean, we've had a handful of people beaten up on the train. That is one way in a part of the studies that would indicate younger people prefer walkable communities. They don't have to drive everywhere. I have two sons your age. If they go out with their friends, they're taking Uber or public transportation because they want to be responsible and not possibly indulge in adult beverages and drive. And that's great. I mean, young people seem to be taking that approach, and so they want to live where they can have access to transportation.
Where do they live?
So those are the things that they are looking for young people.
Can I-
Can you answer a question for me? What are you looking for to stay here?
Just more, like, there's not lots to do. Like, for me, you have to go up to Chicago. That's a long trip. Even the train and driving, the drive's going to be up there if you want to go anywhere. And I'm wondering if you guys could, I know some people don't want to make North Muskegon like a second Chicago, but it would drive in more people, also make it a little bit more, bring in more, I don't know, like, have near West Side that's booming and stuff like that. And maybe I was just there last time and stuff, you know, and I mean, I get some people don't like that and stuff like that, but it doesn't make me want to stay here. I'll go live in a smaller city and have all those things and stuff. A train, I'm just saying, I don't mean to get back on this, but a train transportation isn't enough to keep me around here.
Thank you for your point. Does anybody not ask a question, because we're down to 15 minutes? I'm sorry?
You just said about walkable areas in the community. I live in Westlake. I've lived there since 1999. We do not have a walking path. We do not have a bicycle path. We've tried to, or the town has tried to buy a pathway over the tracks over there. They won't sell anything to us. So our kids are stuck in our community. So in order for us to get to this centennial village, we'll have to walk on grassways to get there along North Fifth Street. I don't think our town is walkable. And there's nothing, if you like 3 points, that's fine. That's the only thing that's bringing the millennials to the community.
Schererville is segmented by routes 41 and 30, and a couple of different routes.
Yeah, but we're talking about a train. You're talking about bringing people to the community because of this train. I've lived here since 1999, and I can't even get to Centennial Park. So that's nothing's helping me.
Well, that's certainly, I'll pass that along to the council.
Well, good, because like I said, they tried to buy a pathway over the tracks over there, and that was a no-go. So we're stuck. We're stuck within Westlake.
Okay.
John's a question.
Mine's not a question, mine's a comment. I returned to this area about 1.5 years ago after being gone for almost 50 years. I grew up in this area. It was a great place to live. It was a great place to raise a family. It was not a great place to go out and howl. No, I moved away and I did my thing and I came back. What I see now is it's still a great place to raise a family. If you don't want to raise a family here, if you want to go out and howl, live somewhere else.
Can I?
All right. Ned.
You know, on the topic, I'd like to talk about schools. My family, we moved to Munster 2 years ago in downtown Chicago.
Can you speak up just a
Yeah,
little?
so sorry. My family and I, we moved from downtown Chicago to Munster 2 years ago. We live over in White Oak. I lived in downtown for 21 years. I'm a Purdue University graduate from Lafayette. I grew up actually in East Chicago in the harbor in the 70s and 80s. And if you're looking to grow a community, if you're looking to attract young people, the most fundamental thing that you have to focus on is your schools. If your schools decline, if funding for schools declines, people will not consider your communities as an option. I'm very pro-train, but I'm pro-train under the right conditions, that school funding is not affected, and that we can promote our schools. We moved to Munster because Munster has the best schools. We want to maintain that. But if you want to, on the topic of growing a community that is seeing enrollment in schools decline, an aging population, we have people who are at that point of boomers who are going to be retiring soon. They need to sell their homes eventually and figure out the next portion of their lives. But to attract young people into our communities, to buy those homes, to keep home values high, to make them vibrant, the schools are the most fundamental thing in any community. If schools decline, if we lose funding for schools, if we're giving up our tax dollars, then everything goes by the wayside.
Well, and I appreciate your point, and I agree with it, but you also have to have public safety for that.
Absolutely.
People like you will move out in a heartbeat if you don't think your family is safe.
Absolutely, and that also still all goes back to the premise of if my local tax dollars or my property tax dollars are being diverted, you know, towards other projects, then my safety can decline, because then obviously my civil servants, I have to feel safe. That's, I'm pro-train, but I'm pro-train under the auspice of transparency.
And to your previous point, well, first of all, I have to stick up for my superintendent who's here from Lake Central. We got really good schools, which is why we don't.
I'm not saying they don't, I just said Munster.
We don't have charters springing up because we're being satisfied right here.
And I mean nothing against
I know
that, it's
that.
kind of based on the statistics, that's why we chose Munster.
I just had to push back. That's why we're sitting. So anyway, I would agree with your first point because, and I've got demonstrative evidence of that. When I was president of the Cherville Town Council, I heard all too many times someone say to me, "Oh, well, you know, I like Cherville, I like Dyer, I like, but schools are too crowded, and I don't want to move there because of that reason." When you hear that enough times, you realize, whether everybody else in the room realizes it or not, or the people that don't have kids in the system and they wonder, why do I have to pay for the schools? You realize your home values are tied to them.
Of course.
And so I was all in favor of rectifying that problem to protect our home values.
Yes.
So, Rick,
Can I-
I just want to weigh in on the school issue, which you have. I'm pretty blessed in my district I have Lake Central and Crown Point and Hanover and Tri Creek, and I have 2 Newton County schools and 1 in Benton County. They all do a great job. They've done what they've had to do. The Lake Central thing was absolutely atrocious. I never went there, but I was there enough to see the enrollment they had there and the space they had there to work with that enrollment. That was affecting the ability of kids to learn and for teachers to do their job because they didn't have the right facility. Whether you like it or not, you think they overbuilt, that's a decision you can talk about. But something needed to be done. So I'm very, every district, every school in my district has probably helped people move in right now because they're looking at our school system, that district that I have, and they're looking to move in because of that school district and what they're doing. And you look at the school, it's a state and local participation anymore. Because you got 2 budgets. Okay, you got the capital side, you got the operating side, which could change in a House bill that's being introduced to give them more flexibility with their budgets. Hopefully they will get that flexibility. So you got to look at that issue of your school system. And right now, I think we talked about this train issue. You know, it's an issue, but the education part of where this train is coming in is pretty strong. I'm not familiar with the Munster stuff as much as I am with the district down here, but I don't go as far as Munster. So.
Rick or Al, something that I've been noticing lately is discussion and legislation moving through on small cell towers. What was the catalyst for that, and what is the goal for that legislation that's moving through?
by the way, Bob Holtman, town manager for Cherville, is here. So thanks, Bob. Is that a Senate bill? Cell towers?
I've been reading about it, it's coming out of the AIM, Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, coming through their publication. And it's something about small site that we're gonna locate these cell towers in right-of-ways, public right-of-ways. I know there's equipment that they put on, just like a normal cell array.
There's been dialogue about the Senate, I think probably comes from the Senate side of the bill that is allowing these, they're not utility companies, sometimes they want to be considered utility companies, these broadbands and fiber optic stuff's coming in, to be able to work with utility poles, utility easements, and stuff without going through a local plan commission or a city or town to let them know what they're doing.
Well, that's kind of a concern.
It is a big
I have one
concern.
right now, I've got a petition right now, a guy sent me a 123-foot pole that he wants to drop right in the right-of-way.
Exactly, and we had dialogue. I don't know exactly if that bill cleared or not, because there was so much language change and amendments that part of it was they weren't looking so much for the revenue that was going to create as the acknowledgement, and so the building department and the cities and towns knew what was going on, because they might have a project in that area or a year down the line, they got to move those poles because there's something that's in their master plan or somebody's coming in. So I think that's going to be addressed, especially if it went over the House. There's going to be some amendments hopefully put on there that locals have a say-so in that issue. Because the other issue is, in the unincorporated area, I want to give you this just real quick, that everybody owns the middle of the road in unincorporated area, okay? These utility poles are put up to bring electricity in and bring that utility in to NIPSCO. Now they're hanging fiber optic on it, they're putting other stuff on side there, broadband. Do they have the ability to do that, and should the owner of that pole be, or that land be compensated for that? Because that wasn't part of the original utility agreement. And I believe that the utility companies are getting compensated for that, putting broadband on, especially in rural areas. So those are big concerns down there that we're looking at right now. And the Lake County Plan Commission, Ned Kavatsky called me last week, and Ned's got big concerns. And he was talking more about Crown Point and hanging too much stuff on those poles. They become eyesores. They start leaning because you're putting too much stuff on them. So they're working with NIPSCO now and all this other stuff. And this legislation will be looked at very hard in the second half. Good point.
You know, you mentioned that. We had a bill that passed through the House that I was against, and it had to do with Airbnb regulation to prevent locals from flat outlawing that kind of, the idea being, well, we're infringing on private property ownership rights. But at the same time, I think locals have zoning and planning authority that we shouldn't be stepping on. So I'm hopeful that this is one, I hope you guys fix that thing up. So.
I mean, I hope you're dealing with the residents who are actually asking us, we have this 125-foot pole right in our neighborhood.
Right. Yes. Bill.
I'll try and keep my question shorter than the answer.
Because we're down to, what, 6 minutes? So.
In regards to some of your earlier legislation, what is the status of that referendum in Griffith?
Well, I don't know. That's a Griffith issue now. They're in a lawsuit the last time.
Last I heard,
the question was
supposed to have a referendum in December, and then it was moved up, but I haven't
it's
heard
my
any more.
understanding that they can put that off until they can resolve the legal issues. Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify, because I work up in Chicago. My question about keeping electrical here and stuff. I work in Chicago, I'm an electrical engineer up there and stuff. I do commute, and I don't know if you, I think that they said howling and stuff like that. Personally, I don't go out and
you look like a howler.
But I mean, I just wanted to clarify that, and also the training is something that would not keep me even in this area or in Chicago. I'm just like, cities are they're setting plans to keep it going.
And I
stuff like
recognize
and bring
that.
them here. I just want to.
It's our hope to stimulate some activity.
Awesome.
I just,
Yeah, Ken.
one last thing, and I think there are a lot of things that we agree on here. I think the Gateway Station plan is a great plan. The RDA taking control, this is the third year in a row we've had RDA take power from locals. And my concern is that that's going to continue. There was a lot of comment here, even on this last bill. You said you didn't want to take that control away from the locals to regulate the Airbnb. Yet in this instance, we're taking everything away from the locals and not retaining any power. And the Economic Development Commission, Hammond already has designed a TIF around the Gateway Station that they could work with the RDA on. That's on hold right now until this happens, because they don't know what's going to happen with that area. And they have no.
The locals are still going to have planning and zoning. The only element.
But you know that.
Let me finish now. The only element that's being removed is the redevelopment commission does not have to go out and do the bonding. That's what's happening. And what's needed in the bill, and we've talked about this, is the need to make some clarification of that interaction between the municipality and the RDA. So we're going to add that.
It's not just the authority to go out and do the bonding. They don't have the authority to draw the districts or terminate the districts or anything else. I mean, if the district pays for itself, the local economic development authority could say, we're done with this. Hammond just closed 2 TIFs the year before last. They can't do that in this case. It lasts 30 years or until the bonds are paid off.
They absolutely have that control, because they can turn around and not approve the zoning for that district.
But there's a lot of political pressure for that, and you know that. I mean, that's the political pressure that's going to be applied.
All I can tell you is they have the authority.
Lake County's looking at their zoning right now. Gary's looking at theirs right now. And once that's changed, it's impossible for the citizens to say, let's change it back. They don't understand it.
Any other questions? we in? Yes, Kathy, LaRue. Councilman and Dyer, everybody.
Thank you. So could you just clarify, I don't want to open up another can, however, with the RDA, do they currently have authority to declare eminent domain, or do they not?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So I didn't think.
Nor will they now.
Right, because I've heard out there that there's a bill that's supposed to be coming up, to be passed in July, that would grant them eminent domain, and I didn't believe that to be.
Would you read that on Facebook?
No, somewhere else, but.
Yeah.
No.
I would.
Thank you.
I just want to add to what you said, that even though the RVs might not have eminent domain, NICD does. So in conjunction, they can work together and NICD can just act as the eminent domain.
NICD board is made up of mostly elected officials. Follow up?
Yeah, follow up to that. With NICD, that's for the train plan, the Westlake corridor. With the RDA, that's more in association with the TDD. So that's the difference is, RDA is more involved with developing these districts.
Right.
Versus the Westlake corridor is NICD.
That's correct.
So there's a difference.
That's correct. One's building the rail and the other's trying to build quality of life.
So, right, and it's already, with NICD, it's the rail, with the concern with RDA would be if they would be able to then, declare eminent domain with those areas for the TDD.
Now, just so you know, the RDA has to answer every year to the state budget committee. They are a pseudo-state agency. So, yes, sir. I think you're the last question. You get
Okay, no problem. And my question is in regard to jobs coming to Indiana. What is going on currently in our legislature that is actually promoting companies to get here? For instance, I know we just briefly, and it's been discussed, how great we kind of have like our, just in the region alone, we have Purdue Cal, we have Northwest Indiana University, we have Valparaiso University. A lot of these places create some excellent high-paying positions. And I've heard there's talk about things going to creating a train, have jobs come to Chicago. What can be done to bring the high-tech paying jobs here? I know Wisconsin, like in Madison, for instance, has one of the highest medical coding companies in their location. What can be done to, and what is currently being done by Indiana right now to bring those jobs to Northwest Indiana?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and I want to verbalize in front of my colleague here. We just got in the budget this year $35.1 million for new bio life sciences building at Purdue Cal. We've been working on that for years. It's going to transform that campus. What they're projecting is going to really be important for our region. The key is keeping it in the budget, Rick, going forward. It's very rare that one of these satellite campuses gets a new facility like that. They're always in West Lafayette, they're always in Bloomington kind of thing. So this is a big win for us, and that's an important thing. The other answer to your question, of course, is the work that the Indiana Economic Development Corporation does in trying to attract business to this area. And of course, they work in connection with the local municipalities to provide some incentives to bring jobs for Hoosiers.
Yeah,
So that's ongoing.
And the budget, not the budget, but the bill that passed the Senate, Senate Bill 198, and some school corporations have a little bit of dialogue with this. It's about the CTE funding for career development jobs. And this turns a lot of their grant money over to the workforce development in Indiana that will monitor these things of high efficient, high profile jobs, moderate and low in areas like Lake County to find out what the workforce needs, what they're asking for. We have a lot of jobs in this state that can't be filled because we don't have the right type of workers to fill them, and they're high profile jobs, good paying jobs. So the idea of the CTA new funding and going through workforce development is to go in these schools and these high schools and try to develop plans with companies in an area, with trade unions in an area of what they're looking for, and put money into the system instead of just putting money into someplace maybe where those jobs are a little tougher to get, there's not a demand for them, So workforce development has been working on this for a long time, and this is a piece of legislation that went to the House, Senate Bill 198, that I believe is gonna direct some of that money where it needs to go and make sure these students are getting trained for a job they can have once they get out of high school. Because a lot of these kids are not worried about going to college, they're not worried about it, but don't want to go to college. They want to start being part of the workforce as soon as they get out of high school and try to start making a family, living in this community. We've got to get those jobs, and this bill would do that. You look at Senate Bill 198, read it online. I think you're going to see that as a really good piece of legislation for young people in this area.
Okay. Barbara, he's not asking, well, maybe you've got one in her. Go back.
I just want to thank both of you for being brave enough to come in front of the firing squad to keep us informed.
It's part of the package, I believe.
Yeah, one more. I missed the first part of the meeting, but my wife filled me in a little bit.
That's what all the good stuff was.
Yeah. So my wife has, she's a commercial real estate appraiser. She's devoted a lot of research in the last month to a lot of this bill. And earlier, I understand that you said that this would be structured like a TIF. That this would be structured, there is language that would be structured. One of the issues I have is in a TIF eliminates conflict of interest, and it promotes total transparency and accountability. One of the things that we've researched, we pulled every parcel of land around the TLD in Munster. Okay? Every parcel, my wife has access to her job. Here's where we found some conflict of interest. There are people affiliated with the RDA and who sit on the board of the RDA who own, or their organizations own land around the TLD at the Munster Dyer site.
Yes.
That's there. And that, in a TIF, that would not be allowed. So, I don't know if you can comment on that now, but that's a big, big red flag.
Well, you probably missed the part where your wife already brought that up.
Okay.
And wanted to make sure that the responsibility of the RDA was the same as the RDC community development.
So would those
as it
people
relates to
forfeit
them.
their positions on the RDA or not work with the RDA? Because, I know locally, on our local level, for our local development, people cannot sit on our local development commissions and actually have a vested interest in the projects. So, but we have that with this RDA, so.
Well, I've been in local government. It's impossible to never have a conflict. Disclosure is critical.
I mean, they'd be in charge of funds, and they have a dog in the fight because they own property around some of these TLDs. Hey, call me naive, but I grew up in the county, and we have a reputation for
I'll call you naive. Welcome to the game, champ. That's how it goes around here, buddy.
All right.
That's how it goes.
We're over time now. Thanks for coming.